But Chris's first song to me was Black by Pearl Jam. To your point, I had not heard it before.
Hmm.
And if I had heard it before, there was nothing about it that made me go, oh, let me listen. But it was interesting. It was
Hmm.
interesting. I feel like this is one, and while I've listened to it many times since you've thrown it my way,
Hmm.
I feel like I have to settle into it a little bit more. I think this song can have a very relevant place for a playlist in the
Hmm.
future.
Okay.
I really, even now, I don't know that I need it on today, but I
Hmm.
think having this in the roster of it might end up on my working through life playlist,
Mm.
maybe,
Okay. All right. Interesting.
maybe.
I'm very, like I said, I was very interested to hear what your thoughts would be on this song because
Mhm.
you're not known to be a big Pearl Jam fan.
No,
And I
no.
think that for me personally, 10 by Pearl Jam, their first record is to me hands down their best record. I know a lot of
And
but that is the record that I mean that I
hey,
love
it put
that
him on the
record.
map.
It,
It
it
put him on the
did, and
map.
I love that record. I think the songs are great,
Oops.
especially this one.
Well, and when songfacts.com, I did
Songfacts.com.
some I did some reading, and it was this song is about first relationships, and it's very rare for a relationship to withstand the Earth's gravitational pull and where it's going to take people and how they're going to grow. I've heard it said that you really can't have a true love unless it has a love unrequited. It's a harsh one because your truest one is the one you can't have forever. And I found that just very interesting. So, because staying in a relationship long term is hard.
Hmm.
Very hard, especially if you've married very young.
Right.
You're so busy changing, and the gravitational pull of life, it just really struck a chord with me. I really like that because the gravitational pull is so strong.
Right.
And so love and respect and care for each other has to be stronger than that. And
Hmm.
that is not always something that a love can do.
No. No. Yeah. It's very true because you think about all the things you go through in life,
Mhm.
like life just kind of comes at you
Yeah,
regardless. And yeah, like it says, like sometimes the gravity of
life.
life
Yeah,
just
it's too much.
drives a wedge, and it's just too much to deal with. And so you're decide to go your own way, decide to separate or what for whatever reason. And but I think it's just real. Like that's not,
Mhm.
this is what happens. It happens all the
And
time.
and I think this is a very good song, and maybe I'm wrong, but those relationships that just break up just because you're not in the season together anymore.
Right.
You guys truly have outgrown each other. There's no hate, there's no issue. It's just you're different people than where you started, and there's people who walk away and remain very good friends, but romantically they're just not there together anymore. And so I feel like this song can be really good for that too. So it's a very interesting song to me. My knee-jerk reaction was I did not care for it in a way, like I didn't dislike it. I was just kind of neutral on it.
Right.
But as I listened to it more, I was like, I don't know. It's kind of grown on me.
Yeah, it's this is one of these songs, and where it happens on the record too, I think is pretty interesting because I think it's like the fifth song when you listen to this when you on a sequence of record on the record for
Mhm.
10. And so basically, yeah, so it goes to like literally four rockers, like Once, Even Flow, Alive, which are all three like gigantic, like big rock songs, good record openers. Why Go is another like fast rocker. And then song 5, you get Black. And the whole tone of the record changes from that point. Because the way 10 is sequenced is that you really get like these, like I said, these really fast up tempo rockers. And then almost like Black kicks off the second half of the record, which is these
Mm.
much more like introspective, deeper songs. Like then you get in Jeremy and Poor. Like you just get like a different, like still the same record, but just a different feeling. And I feel like that song is the switch on that record. And it's a song that people like, I mean, I myself included, like have really latched on to Black. And I know when they've played it live, and I think one show they even opened with it, and people went berserk. Like, what a song to open with! Like, you open your show with Black. Like, wow.
Interesting. It's
But
not quite a get the crowd pumped up type of
no,
song.
but it's a very emotional song, especially when it
Mhm.
builds. Because it starts off that slow, like almost
Mm.
like sounds like he's playing through like a
Yeah.
radio, and then by the time you get to the end with like the piano and and he's just going on like those lyrics that are do 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 do, like it just really builds to something, and I think it's a nice emotional roller coaster, that song.
It's interesting, and I feel I've probably listened to it about 10 times now, which is significant. I mean,
That's significant for you.
that's a lot of minutes of listening to Black by Pearl
Yeah,
Jam.
it is
10 might not seem a lot, but it is.
it is.
Um, and like I said, it grew on me each time I listened to it, or maybe not grew on me as much as I could appreciate it. I think
Hmm.
appreciate should be the word that I'm using. So I can see where Pearl Jam fans
Right.
latch to this.
Yeah, it's a good song. Yeah, so you know what? Let's play a little bit of it,
Okay.
because this might be, so unless you're really into Pearl Jam,
I
this
agree.
might not be a song that
Mhm.
you know. I mean, I do play it on the radio, but I guess it's more of an album cut. I mean, anybody that's in Pearl, do you guys agree with that? I mean, I'd say it's a little bit more of an.
He's singing conversation, I feel like. Singing thoughts.
Yeah, and I think that that's sort of the Eddie Vedder style of things, And actually, Stone Gossard wrote this song, the music for it, and then Eddie Vedder came in and put the lyrics to it later on. Like, a lot of that, especially this early record, was a lot of that. And I'm not going to go deep into the history of of Pearl Jam and them being like Cold Mother. They were a band called Mother Love Bone before any of the Eddie Vedder
What a
stuff, and
name.
and Andrew. There's so much with the stuff, the connections with Soundgarden, Chris Cornell, all that.
Mhm,
But
mhm.
there used to be a band called Mother Love Bone. It was pretty much half the guys from Pearl Jam. Andrew Wood, their singer, they got signed. They're about to just blast it, like really popular band, and Andrew Wood dies of a heroin overdose. Just as the band's they're about to release their debut record, recorded it. He dies, and everything gets like spun on its off its axis, and then eventually, though, this is what happens. Because that happens, Mother Love Bone turns into Pearl Jam and becomes like the biggest band on the planet. So it's like insane. And so this was, because this was a debut record, so it was literally like the Mother Love Bone stuff. Andrew Wood dies. They're like, what do we do? They got all these songs, and they basically get hooked up with Eddie Vedder. I'm very much truncating this,
Mhm,
Pearl Jam
mhm.
fans. I know they're all like, wow, you're leaving it, truncating this. And then eventually they developed Pearl Jam, and actually when this record came out, it took like over a year before it even caught any kind of traction. Like, it was out for like a year before anybody even cared about it. It's crazy, like how long it took for this record to finally like break, and then that was it. Pearl Jam became the biggest band, and still to this day, just released a record this year, still one of the biggest rock bands on the planet. And crazy.
That's it's just never give up, people. Never give
Yeah,
up unless you're just done. Like
yeah,
being done with a season is different than giving up.
yep,
Don't give up. You just never know.
yeah, yeah. So I love this song, and I feel like that this song to me, like being Stone Gossard, and I don't know for sure, and maybe some Pearl Jam fanatics out there will let me know, but I feel like the song may have been a little bit of a leftover from those Mother Love Bone days, potentially
Mm,
as a riff,
mm,
or maybe even came out of that, having still lost, like
mm.
still reeling from
Seems like that
Andrew's
would make
death,
sense.
and all that. So it could very well have still been in there with Stone Gossard. He big songwriter, one of the main
Yeah.
songwriters of Pearl Jam, and also of Mother Love Bone. So go back.
Hmm.
By the way, for anybody out there, if you don't know Mother Love Bone, I implore you, go listen to some Mother Love Bone stuff. You guys are gonna absolutely go bananas for it.
What a
It's
name.
excellent. It's excellent. Mother Love Bone stuff. Oh, so good, so good. Anyway, okay, Amanda.
I okay.
Everybody's waiting.
I know. I
The
know.
entire
Mhm.
Pearl Jam fandom
Oh, I'm sure.
is waiting what that girl is gonna think about Black,
Okay.
having never heard it before, up
Mhm.
until like when I just gave it to you this weekend, basically.
I feel like there's a place for it. There's a space for it. I feel that it's gonna grow on me further.
Mhm.
I think it's appropriate for this show. But with that being said, for me right now, it's at like a 3.3.
Okay.
So it's a little bit above average.
So black is a little bit above average for you.
A little bit above average.
3.3.
And I
Okay.
think when I originally heard this song, it probably would have been a 3. So I feel like it's creeping up the scale.
Okay.
And I'm just not in a moment where I need this song,
Okay.
which
That's
I
fair.
think is indicative of a good heartbreak song, or, a lost song
Mhm.
is you don't always need
Yeah.
it. And so when I will feel it, and it will mean more to me during a cycle in the future, I'm sure.
Okay.